Please use the reminders of Nirodha and Nibbana together with working. Everything is not attached to the non-attachment itself. Just recall this sentence more often. Simultaneously with working, with the task, with samsara. Don't separate liberation from samsara. Don't separate nibbana from all things, from all beings. Nibbana is to be used to purify samsara, to purify the beings and all things. Therefore, don't separate nibbana from working, from the task. Don't separate liberation from the task, from the duties. Don't separate it from all the routines, daily routines. It has to be in the way of mind, with mind altogether, not attached to non-attachment altogether. This will be helping through releasing and unwinding altogether for the karma. Don't separate liberation from samsara, from karma, from karmic difficulties. Use liberation to help unleash for karma and karmic difficulties. This is how the Buddhas and Mahabodhisattvas blessing samsara, helping through ending all the routines, personal activities. Just think of these sentences more often, not attached even to the non-attachment altogether simultaneously. Mind to mind with everything simultaneously. Mind even from mind itself, not attached even to the non-attachment itself simultaneously. If you use these reminders, it will be simultaneous unwinding, helping through unwinding and releasing. There is not much. If there is much, then it's a burden. Therefore, there is not much. Remember that. Don't separate liberation from anything whatsoever. If you think to help samsara, to unwind, to liberate, therefore don't separate liberation from samsara. Let's proceed simultaneously so that it's possible to bless beings. This is the essential code that you need to recall, and the blessing will happen automatically. Everything is not attached to the non-attachment itself. With everything, with every matter, with every position, every routine, duties and tasks. Everything is not attached even to the non-attachment itself simultaneously. Mind to mind altogether. Mind even from mind itself simultaneously. Mind even from mind itself simultaneously. Not attached even to the non-attachment itself simultaneously. Just recall more often. When we proceed simultaneously, there is no separation already. Not separating nibbana from all beings. Instead, it's gonna be blessing. To sit in meditation, in contemplation, that is separating oneself from all things. Trying to be peace within oneself, which is separating, that is not blessing beings. That is trying to gain peace into oneself. That is grasping. Grasping is a mistake. There is no real peace because it's temporary. There is just peace temporary. Not grasping for the non-grasping itself is a liberation. Not just peace or no peace. That is the essence of cutting deluded knowing for samsara. You have to diligently use these reminders. This is the essential code to conclude towards ending for samsara. Therefore, you need to recall and remind through these essential codes. There are not that many sentences. Just use them and listen through line, through the recordings. These are the essential codes to help for samsara. All that values to gain anything from mindfulness, concentration, contemplation, meditative power, special insights and wisdom. When there is a delusion to practice, it becomes selfish for the sake of one's own gains. That is not working. Just like trying to get something that is not about grasping, it doesn't work. With the liberation and nibbana, it's impossible to use the way of grasping. When we practice and project for attainments, for mindfulness, concentration, contemplation, special insight and wisdom, that is grasping from the assumed up, and that doesn't work. Time has changed. The Satchadhamma has changed, not in the same way as you have thought. It's not the same. The first thing is that it's not about practicing for attainment. Second, it's not about liberation from samsara. Instead, liberation to help samsara. It's not nibbana from all beings. Instead, using liberation and nibbana for all beings, to purify for all beings. Let's change. Let's get into the new dimension. It will happen in the way that is graceful. The new era that is more civilized, more gracious. Because they're trying to escape through liberation individually. Therefore, samsara is ignored. No one helps through the liberation. They just left in the way that is messy and confusing within the whole samsara. Let's shift into the new dimension. It's not about liberation from anything. It's not about not attached to anything. Not attached to the non-attachment itself with everything simultaneously. Let's proceed simultaneously like this altogether. This is not about attempting to not attach to anything. Otherwise, this cannot proceed with samsara. Because aiming towards liberation individually is impossible to bless samsara already. Even though that one has to be amidst samsara as usual and trying to liberate from samsara, even the arahants, they are still amidst samsara. They also shift to bless samsara. Therefore, don't search for peace, because that doesn't work, because it's still in the way at the time of grasping. No grasping for the non-grasping itself with everything. Let's conclude like this. In this way, liberation will be used for helping altogether through the unwinding. If it starts with grasping, that is selfish, self-importance, being deluded to oneself, that is narrow, it's limitations. Let's shift towards the essence of the great compassion, of compassion and great compassion. The question is, whoever that listen to his Luang Por's Dhamma and not understand, Luang Por said, just listen continuously. So long as you try to understand, you will not understand. Why is that so? Because you're trying to grasp for wisdom, trying to grasp overlaying that which is not about grasping. Listen to the Sajidama of Hluang Po. It's impossible to use understanding or not understanding. Just listen and discard whatever that is there in the listening. Then liberation will happen automatically. If listening and understanding, then it doesn't work either. Or not understanding, neither is working. Understanding and not understanding is a tithi, is an opinion. That means that you're not yet putting down the tithi. That is not liberating. Listen without grasping for listening. Even not grasping for the non-grasping itself, what is there to be grasped here? Not grasping even for the non-grasping itself. That is liberation, helping through unwinding and releasing. This is personal meeting, so it's difficult for the authorities of the hotel. Actually, it's a good thing to listen here and writing out altogether. It's a good thing. But when people have conditions in living the life, it's not good. Having a lot of obligations and conditions is not good. Conditions is like rope tie up one's arms and legs, always obstructing, being stuck with just conditions and rules and regulations with obligations, this and that. Therefore, it's impossible to be liberated. Listen to Hluang Po's Sajidama. Conclude accordingly, end accordingly only. Don't try to make understand with it, because it's gonna go further already. Further than the ending itself. Instead of cut through accordingly, there is no cutting, because trying to make understanding there. It's a tithi, opinions and meanings. They call it wisdom. Actually, it is opinions and meanings. They are decorative tithi. Listen mai and not mai accordingly. Instead, there is interpretation. Therefore, it's not ending. Listen to mai, even from mai itself. Just follow it accordingly. There is no need to interpret further or distinguish anything further, unless you use your thoughts with your work. That is another thing. But with Sajidama, it's about listening and end accordingly. Don't interpret further. Otherwise, it's not ending accordingly. It's become the arising mind. Listen to Hluang Po with understanding or not understanding, then it doesn't work. There's still something that is trying to understand or not understanding. That is the desire. Listen to that which is not about anything, without identification. When you identify, then it's not aligned with the essence of Hluang Po, Sajidama of Hluang Po. Therefore, just listen continuously. Ending will happen accordingly. The work will receive the brightness accordingly in its integration. Helping through unwinding and releasing will happen at work automatically. Work is karma. most people want to liberate from the work. That's why. How can you liberate from work? Washing face, brushing your teeth is also work. Breathing in, breathing out is a kind of work as well. It's called personal routines. Even shower is a task as well. A kind of personal routine. How can you liberate from this kind of task? This kind of routines. Liberation is the non-attachment. Let's conclude again. Not attached to the non-attachment itself is not about not attached to anything. Let's make a new conclusion. Don't try to not attach to oneself, to the work, to the task, to feelings, emotions and all things. Don't try that. Don't try to not attach. Don't try to detach. It doesn't try to not attach to you. Why are you trying to not attach to it? That's stupid to try to not attach to it. It doesn't try to attach to you. Or to not attract to you. So let's change. It's not about not attached to anything. Not attached even to the non-attachment itself. No one is troubling here. Not attached to the non-attachment itself. This is not rejecting anyone or samsara. Not troubling anyone. Not attached to the non-attachment itself is not going to trouble oneself either. If trying to not attach to oneself, then there will be a troublesome. You see, even trying to not attach to oneself, there is a trouble. Because oneself is always there every day. So why try to not attach to oneself like that? So change again. Not attached to the non-attachment itself. This is not about not attached to oneself. Not attached to the non-attachment itself only. This is not about not attached to oneself, not attached to the non-attachment itself instead. Use a new recall. This will be aligned with the cutting within itself. It's not about cutting something. Cut through directly. With everything is not attached automatically in its nature. This is not to practice mindfulness, concentration and wisdom for anything, for equanimity. It's not about grasping. Practicing for attainment is impossible to be liberated because it's stuck with the grasping. Listen